This video is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. Stay tuned to find out more.
This is easily one of the weakest drops that Kanye West has ever put out.
I think it's the worst. Can we just agree that it's the worst project? If it stands as it is. Because it's hard to judge it because it's not really completed yet.
You can give people an experience once the record is finished. But until then, don't sell any merchandise. Don't tell people to buy stem players for an album that won't release on the day that you say it will, masking it as if you're doing something revolutionary for artists when you can't even commit to the schedule that you've made.
And there are notable features on the project from the likes of Jack Harlow and Future, Migos. Kind of seems like the sort of thing that you would want to finish, want to complete, but what we ended up getting was a very incomplete mess of an album, and if it just is kind of allowed to sit there and stay completely as is, I think it's going to go down as quite possibly one of the bigger blemishes on Kanye West's discography, to have this blatantly unfinished album just sitting there, not done, untouched, and pretty much profited off of, despite it being released in the very shoddy state that it was.
If there's anything that can derail an artist's career, it's losing the respect from their fan base. Whether it's an ill-timed comment, a petty public beef, or testing their audience's patience by failing to deliver on promises, there are many ways that an artist can destroy their legacy. But in the case of Kanye West, he's proven himself to be nearly indestructible in the eyes of his fans. No matter what absurd comments he makes, any instance where he lets the petty side of his personality out, or scraps entire projects, his million-strong audience is always willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on the grounds that it's the pitfalls of being a genius. Or at least, that was the case until the ill-fated Donda 2 experiment. After the emergence of Donda, which was subject to its own stunted rollout, Kanye's stock was higher than it's been since he was born again. Among his most accomplished projects in recent years, fans were happy to sing his praises about the extent of both his musical vision and the ability he had to deliver on it. But soon, his widespread goodwill and renewed focus on his career, which was emphasized by the release of his Netflix series Genius, began to disperse by his smear campaign against his ex-wife's new boyfriend, Pete Davidson. But given that some of his finest work has come from times of strife and aggravation, such as 808s and Heartbreak and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, the news that he'd be dropping an album in the midst of it all was a fascinating prospect. Set to be dropped on 22/2/22 due to its astrological significance, the hype for the record was only compounded when it was revealed that an album, which had the likelihood of being as petty as he'd ever produced, would be overseen by none other than the king of toxicity, Future. Coupled with endless pictures of Ye in the studio with collaborators ranging from Travis Scott to The Game to Young Lean, Scarface, and Dream Pop outfit Beach House, it appeared that this time around, Ye was pulling out all the stops and had every intention on improving on what he started with Donda. And more importantly, he remained adamant that the record would deliver on time. But just when it seemed like all was going well, Ye opted to throw his listeners a gigantic curveball which would forever change the complexion of the record. Donda 2 will only be available on my own platform, the Stem Player, not on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or YouTube, he proclaimed. Today's artists just get 12% of the money the industry makes. It's time to free music from its oppressive system. It's time to take control and build our own. Go to stemplayer.com now to order. As was evident, Ye's intention was to maximize his own profits and that of his collaborators. And in all fairness, it was in keeping with much of his rhetoric from recent years. I'm not putting no more music out till I'm done with my contract with Sony and Universal. On God. In Jesus' name, come and get me, he wrote during a lengthy Twitter rant in which he campaigned for his masters and even urinated on a Grammy. I'm not gonna watch my people be enslaved, he said as a part of his ongoing war against the traditional practices of the industry. I'm putting my life on the line for my people. The music industry and the NBA are modern-day slave ships. I'm the new Moses. Use the government money and buy land. We have to evolve. Taking a defiant stand against historical injustices, this is a stance that his stands would undoubtedly endorse. However, the only problem is that, rather than emphatically waving a middle finger to the music industry by delivering a classic that was not only essential but out of their grasp, the only people who'd end up being penalized were his fans. As a testament to his long-standing power to bend his audience to his will, Ye reportedly made 7 figures in just 24 hours from Stem Players, and detailed it all via Instagram. Stem Player full transparency. We sold 6,217 units since 22 hours, February 17th, 2022, which grossed 1.3 mil. That's faster than I've sold any t-shirt. God has a plan. New frontier. Anyone that is supporting our revolution is changing the game for all artists. We no longer have to bow to people who don't even truly care about music. I feel like I'm back at SOBs performing Jesus Walks. I walked away from Apple right after having the most #1s in Apple history. After purportedly turning down a $100 million Apple deal, Ye had set the stage for a brand new era in which complete self-ownership for artists was closer than ever. With everything working in his favor, all that was left was for him to deliver on an equitable trade-off between himself and the fans that had bought the STEM player, and, as is now customary, tickets for the stadium-sized listening party. However, even at this stage, he didn't fully explain how the listening experience would be in any way enhanced by the STEM player. And in hindsight, this should have immediately set off alarm bells. But when the inaugural Donda 2 performance turned out to be a disastrous affair which featured him padding out the set with previously released music from Donda, as well as navigating a minefield worth of sound issues that left fans completely deflated, and Ye so aggrieved that he even threw his mic to the floor and stormed off. Feeling more anticlimactic than perhaps anything he's ever released, fans were unsurprised when the performance didn't lead to the release of the album. As for the fallout from the performance, Ye acknowledged the mishaps, and once again, wrapped its shortcomings up in the notion of striving towards his own non-traditional outcome for the event. In every aspect of today's society, things evolve. So why should the way you carry your cash, cards, and other essentials around be any different? Thankfully, the Ridge is here to revolutionize the wallet and make those bulky, leather-bound products into a thing of the past. Sleek, minimal, and purposefully built to fit in your pocket, the Ridge have created the future of wallets, and before long, they'll have set the standard. Available in over 30 styles including burnt titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber, the wallet is almost unanimously beloved by those who bought one, with many customers saying that they never return to anything else. And courtesy of the lifetime guarantee that comes with each Ridge product, they'll never have to. Capable of holding up to 12 cards along with your cash, Ridge wallets aren't just aesthetically pleasing, but secure too. Fitted with RFID blockers, the team have ensured that what's yours will stay out of reach of any digital fraudsters that may be eyeing the contents of your pocket. And armed with over 40,000 5-star reviews, the Ridge is so confident that you'll be thrilled with your choice that they'll offer you a 45-day money-back guarantee. So to help our viewers make the switch, Ridge are kindly offering 15% off all styles and designs. All you need to do is head over to ridge.com and enter the code HipHopMadness. We promise you that you'll never look back. With that said, let's get back to the video.
It wasn't about the sound. One thing I was told is that I had to write the word performance on the piece, but what I was giving you guys is performance art. Yeah. I did these listening sessions when I dropped my album. I put a mask on and I give you this listening session, and it's an installation. They basically forced me to mix Taco Bell and KFC. They basically forced me to mix tequila with cognac. Right. So right when I did the song and I saw myself grabbing this mic and it wasn't my original idea, I was like, I'm gonna throw this mic. Why am I doing this? I'm in control of me. Right. That's the whole point of why I got the STEM player. That's the whole point of why I tweeted the contracts. They have the ability to sell out a stadium, 50,000 seats in 5 days, and then to be told by a promoter, still grab that mic, boy. I ain't grabbing the mic if I don't have to grab the mic.
While this would be understandable, the shoddy nature of the performance would prove to be indicative of what was to come with the project when its first incomplete and unmastered tracks emerged on the STEM player. Before long, word spread that the album was by no means Ye's finest work, and if anything, it was a rushed project that was released to avoid bad press.
It sounds unfinished as hell. It's most likely going to be subject to updates at some point in the near future, but I guess this is the price of getting a Ye project in on time with a totally absurd release date attached to it. But again, this thing doesn't sound complete, and that was already kind of apparent from the live experience performance. Multiple tracks from that show were really short, repetitive, not really filled out with too many details, very understructured, and multiple verses and vocal passages from Ye felt completely ad-libbed, where he's just vaguely flowing and vocalizing over the beat with little to no lyrics to offer. The production on Flowers is even worse. This is the driest, most unseasoned, most I just downloaded Fruity Loops beat I've ever heard Ye on. What the Ye is literally putting cutting room floor tracks onto this record because he doesn't have enough material to fill it out.
Devoid of the sort of clarity of vision that's expected of a Ye project, updates to the album have been minimal, and where he was already retooling the once title-exclusive album, The Life of Pablo, from practically the moment that it was dropped, the album which he had actively placed behind a $200 paywall fell short of the mark, and the critical response from the fans was just sad. Particularly when it became clear that his claim that you could only listen to the record on the stem player was misleading.
I don't feel like a Donda 2 true experience is ever a true experience unless you perform the whole album and only that album. People bought this Kanye West stem player in order to stream his album when they believed it was going to come out. Kanye made an Instagram post saying this album would be released the 22nd. Usually when Kanye is not keeping to a release date or an artist doesn't keep to a release date, I'm fine with that. But when you are kind of giving people an incentive to pay their hard-earned money to basically listen to a record a certain way, and then you flake on that release date, it kind of makes you look shady. It kind of makes you look awful. Now, you don't necessarily need a stem player in order to hear the album. However, the way Kanye phrased it in this original post was as if it was going to be exclusive to people who had stem players. And when you don't clarify that this is going to be free for public consumption regardless of whether or not you have a stem player, you have this exclusivity and you place this urgency on this product when you don't need to. You're almost misleading people into believing they need this device or product in order to hear this album, when in reality you could have just said, I'm releasing my album exclusively on this website, and if you want to hear it through a stem player, you can. But that's not the way he said that. I'm hearing from a lot of the people who watched the live stream with the new music included, and some people who even attended the show, that some of the music still felt like it was in its prototype stage, which is disappointing to hear because I don't know what that means for future rollouts. I don't know if this is becoming Kanye West's new standard. I mean, really dropped 200 to hear demos.
With Kanye celebrating the fact that the album was ineligible for Billboard charts, it's clear that Ye was content with what he gained from it. While it was arguably less of an album and more of Kanye's performative exit from the music industry rat race, this is the sort of move that Ye would normally be celebrated as a pioneer for. However, the issue is that the unique rollout can't mask the fact that this is Ye's most unaccomplished project. On top of contending with the limp reaction to the release, the notion that he'd scammed his fans just wouldn't go away. And now, as the weeks and months have ticked by, the enthusiasm for the project has hit an all-time low.
And there are notable features on the project from the likes of Jack Harlow and Future, Migos. Kind of seems like the sort of thing that you would want to finish, want to complete, but what we ended up getting was a very incomplete mess of an album, and if it just is kind of allowed to sit there and stay completely as is, I think it's going to go down as quite possibly one of the bigger blemishes on Kanye West's discography. This is kind of indicative of, again, yet another Kanye album cycle where the album drops, there's a lot of fanfare, Kanye coming through with a lot of big talk in terms of all the other projects he's working on or wants to drop, and typically those projects we don't end up seeing. This time around, we got as formal a release as I suppose we were going to get, given that this thing didn't end up hitting streaming services and Kanye kind of kept it exclusive to a platform that required you to essentially throw down on a $200 buy-in for the stem player to listen to the damn thing. Releasing this non-album in the way that he did was kind of an obnoxious mistake that I hope music fans don't forget or don't let go of. I'm kind of hoping that this time around, like, people actually really truly remember this and how subpar it was for Kanye and ridiculous and sort of self-centered. Kanye's self-centeredness is obviously that of legend, but in this case we have it actually impacting the quality of his work in a severe way.
Even for those who are less concerned with the $200 price point on the record that he hasn't even attempted to complete, the appetite for the record has all but subsided. And now, Sean C believes that its standout tracks will simply be repackaged and re-released at a later date, while fans who purchased the stem player will be all but abandoned.
Kanye even making a Donda 2, wanting to put it out, is reasonable. It's understandable, and I get it. I do. But if it never came out, I would have been perfectly okay with that too. If at the end of the day we find out that Donda 2 is being scrapped or it's no longer being released, I would be perfectly okay with that. Another confusion that I have is Kanye not really updating anyone. Granted, I don't follow Kanye West on social media, but I haven't seen or heard anything, echoes of anything of him releasing any updates to any of the snippets that we've been hearing the past couple months. Haven't seen him in the studio with anyone working on updating anything. I don't want Donda 2 to come out as is on streaming services the same way we've heard it on the stem player, because at that point I wouldn't say that Donda 2 is finished. I would just say that it's coming out. In all honesty, I think that the best songs and the best moments from Donda 2 are likely to just end up on whatever Kanye ends up working on next. Someone actually had to remind me that Hurricane was a part of Yandhi. I didn't even remember that.
Whether or not Ye actively meant to con his fans, it can't be denied that the optics of the situation don't look good. And for the first time in his career, it registered Ye's putting the quality of the product on the back burner in favor of making a statement. With Donda 2, we see that Ye was more focused on innovating with the stem player and serving as an agitator to the powers that be than he was with the fine-tuning of the project and providing his fans with what they truly deserve. And this, quite frankly, isn't acceptable and is only tolerated due to the intangible nature of the art. Make no mistake, if Ye advertised a new pair of Yeezys and those camping out only received one shoe, there'd be a consumer outcry as they'd all scream for refunds. While Ye's idea with the stem player was all well and good, he skipped the part of the process where he'd usually deliver the seminal music which allows fans to abide by all of his antics. Meaning now, for the first time in his career, he really has some ground to make up before this particular stain doesn't wash off.